Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and still with our continued special edition and coverage. Earlier on Tuesday, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi inspected the Alexandria Harbor and its facilities. Now, during the inspection, he was briefed on the development of the harbor and the facilities, which include a logistics station as well as several maritime piers. Now, we're delighted to be joined over the telephone by our guest, Dr. Bassant Fahmy, the economist. Dr. Bassant, a very good afternoon to you, ma'am.
Good afternoon, madam.
Thank you so much for joining us, Doctor. First and foremost, how would you describe, the development projects that were inspected and inaugurated today in Alexandria as the President toured the Alexandria Port and Harbor?
Well, the infrastructure are the base of any development of any country. The ports are the entry to the country, entry and exit. They are an extremely important point to be developed so that every investor who would really want to come, whether with trading activities or investment activities, import and export, he would like to see advanced ports. And that's why Mr. President today had made this visit to make sure that the ports are really developed in an international level to satisfy the need of the multinational, all the major cross-border companies who wishes to come and invest in Egypt, import and export, and again for investors from the Egyptian country and the region. Development of the ports are a key point, but the development needs to be done on several angles, if you wish. First of all, you need to have a technological development. You need to have proper services. You need to have an efficient group of people who would work there. You need to avoid as much as possible routine and corruption. So the inspection today is extremely important to make sure that the ports are operating along like any international developed port in the world, because the world is different now. The world is not working the same way. We are facing different services offered by many countries in the region, especially in the Mediterranean. So we need to develop our ports. We are going on that track. We have developed several ports, and perhaps we would need to establish other ports in the very near future. But it's an extremely important point for an easy entry and easy exit from the market.
Absolutely.
Whether it be investment, trade, or whatever.
Absolutely. Dr. Bassant, the projects that were inspected today were described by the President himself as implemented by Egyptian hands, Egyptian funds, with a comprehensive mechanism, in line with the general strategies implemented by the state. How do you weigh the impact of this strategy of the state in development in several areas?
I always mention as well, and I respect very much what Mr. President had mentioned, all the projects accomplished in Egypt are done by Egyptian labor, Egyptian engineers, Egyptian raw material, Egyptian finance. And that had created an easy way to develop, first of all, possibilities and chances for the Egyptians to work. Second, it decreases the level of unemployment, it decreases the level of poverty, it increases the level of services offered to the people. So we are developing our country with our own hands, on finance, and I want to repeat this, on finance. There are Egyptian pounds turning in the country, developing, as you say, the infrastructure in all aspects, developing green economy, blue economy, but at the end of the day, they're turning into the economy, creating demand, and when you have demand and consumption, the economy develops and moves further. So this is a very important point. Those are not money loaned from outside. Those are not foreign labor or foreign engineers or foreign raw material. It develops the Egyptian economy in all aspects. And when we move on in the infrastructure and the real estate, 80 industry develops automatically in parallel. So this is a very, very important point mentioned by Mr. President.
Absolutely. Now, during his talks with the engineers and the trainees and the personnel during his visit, President el-Sisi said it is important to raise awareness amongst the youth, amongst the Egyptian workers, which is a top priority of the state. How is this issue very important, and why do you think the President raised it specifically during his discussions with the workforce?
the youth should know, the young generation should know what are the opportunities in front of them, because if they lose hope, they will not become productive. So that's why we need to talk to the young generations and explain to them the future of Egypt, where is it going, and the future is there. But you need to show them, to point to them how they should start, because they don't have enough experience. But we need to help them all in all governorates of Egypt. All governorates, I repeat, should know that in each one there are wealth, there are possibilities of establishing projects, and like we say, they should develop the SWOT analysis in every governorate, so that they see everyone in his place, that he could work, have a good future, develop his life, and live a decent life. So we need to talk to the young generations, explain to them where are the possibilities and the future opportunities, so that they gain trust and start working in developing their own selves and developing the country as well.
Absolutely. We saw also the president speaking about the aim of the project and the need to stress Egypt's position on the Mediterranean Sea. How important is this? How would you elaborate on the impact?
Can you speak up, please, because I can't hear you?
Yes, sorry, Doctor. I was asking you about the president's statements about establishing Egypt's position in the Mediterranean Sea and the Mediterranean region. How important is Egypt's position in this regard?
Yes, now the cooperation between the countries should be on a regional level.
Yes.
Meaning we should form regional groups. The Mediterranean is one of the major regions in the world where if we cooperate together, Greece, Cyprus, and all the countries on the Mediterranean with Egypt, we will develop a way to cooperate together, to complement each other, and not to compete with each other. And this is very important. The regionalization is built on countries which cooperate, complete each other, not compete with each other. And this was a very negative policies used in the past. But every country on the Mediterranean has positive points and negative points. And if we cooperate on building a proper policy, and I always say we should always implement the economic diplomacy, so that all of us will be winning and all of us will be completing each other, not competing. And that's why Mr. President has made a lot of efforts last week and the week before in developing that concept on the Mediterranean with Greece, Cyprus, Iraq, and other countries.
Indeed. During the inspection, the President also made an important statement. He said that any exports will not be allowed to leave the country unless they qualify and follow European standards. How do you see this statement, and what does it say with regards to Egyptian industry?
Because this, when you export any product and it is not really according to international standards, it affects negatively our reputation. It affects the whole market. So we have to make sure that when we export a product, the product is according to international standards, so that it doesn't affect negatively everybody else. So this is an important point, because not only export but import as well.
Yes.
If we want to export and import, we have to watch the international, especially the European standards, so that nobody could hurt our market as a whole by exporting or importing a product which is not according to international level. So I think it is important to have institutions which could really, study exactly the qualifications needed to the international market, not to affect negatively our reputation, the reputation of the Egyptian products.
Absolutely. Finally, Dr. Pestant, what are your expectations regarding the impact of such projects on investors and the investment atmosphere in Egypt?
I personally believe that the Egyptian economy is a very well diversified economy.
Yes.
We have a very clear vision about how the future should be developed. Where is the world going? How can we cooperate together with the regions and African countries? So I think I am very optimistic about the future, and I think our performance in the future will be much better. And I always say economics are not personal opinions, they're ratios, they're indices.
Yes.
So, and I think all the international institutions have given us during the last few years very positive evaluation of our performance, especially on the economic side and on offering decent life to Egyptians. So I'm very optimistic about the future, inshallah.
Indeed. I'd like to thank you very, very much, Dr. Pestant Fahmy, the economist and our guest for this afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, a short break, and we'll be right back to continue our special edition. Do stay tuned. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're now delighted to be joined over the telephone by our guest, Dr. Hani Abulfutuh, the economist. A very good afternoon to you, Dr. Hani.
Good afternoon to you.
Thank you so much for joining us, Doctor. Now, today, of course, we saw President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi inaugurating several development projects at the Alexandria port and the harbor. And the President spoke about the importance of these development projects, the reformation of the port and the harbor, and the technological advancements in this project. How important do you see the outcome of these development projects on the Egyptian economy as a whole?
Well, in fact, the ongoing developments of the logistics and the facilities is important to the local investors as well as foreign investors, because the investment, whether it's local or foreign, relies heavily on the availability and the efficiency of the transportation and the system in the country, and the roads and buildings and the storage facilities. So I see that it is critical that particularly at this time that these facilities should be developed and attract more investments in this area, because without these facilities it would be very hard for investors to inject funds into the country for industrial or agricultural investments without having these facilities in place.
Indeed. Dr. Hani, the President said that investors were not really asked to take part in these projects due to the extremely high costs in the development of the harbor. What does this say to the government's, diligence in the development of this project, even regardless of...
I'm sorry, I can't hear you clearly. Can you please repeat the question?
Yes.
I can't hear you clearly.
Sorry, all right. Doctor, can you hear us like this? Is this better? Can you hear me better now, Doctor?
Yes,
right.
I can hear you.
The President spoke about the fact that no private companies were asked to assist or to develop the harbor or the Alexandria port due to the very high costs. How does this indicate the government's importance on the development projects, even after its very high cost?
In fact, I see that the funds needed to develop these projects are very huge, substantial, and probably for the private sector to undertake these investments solely is not realistic. Probably maybe at this stage, but in fact, the government spending in these huge projects is the right approach. The private sector, probably because of the nature of these projects and the huge funds required, would be reluctant to invest in these projects, and probably because of the returns on the longer term is not suitable, might not be suitable for the private sector to be involved in these projects.
Right.
So it's for the governments to undertake the expense, the pumping or injecting funds into these projects, and probably in the long term, private sector or the government would seek participation with the private sector to develop, to enhance the current projects, and only then it would be suitable for them to consider joining the government in these projects.
Absolutely. Dr. Hani, how would you comment on the impact of this kind of development project on fuel delivery stations at the harbor itself?
Say again, because
yes.
I can't hear you.
Apologies for the poor connection, Doctor. How do you see the development project with regards to fuel deliveries and these stations at the harbor itself?
These are integral factors and components to the new facilities in the harbors, and I think it is needed at this stage, because without securing the fuel supplies and storage facilities, it won't be efficient to build such a huge projects in this field.
Mm-hmm. Right. Finally, Doctor, what are your expectations on the impact of such development projects on the investment atmosphere and foreign investment as a whole in Egypt?
Definitely, I would expect that these projects will have a good return or positive impact on foreign investments, and even on the local investment atmosphere, because any investments on the long term would yield good results on the long term, and and enhancing the facilities and the capabilities for the harbors in the country is certainly a very important factor for investors.
Absolutely right. I'm afraid that's all the time we have for this afternoon. Dr. Hani Abou El-Futuh, our economic expert and guest. Thank you so much, sir, for your time and your insight. And this wraps up our special edition and coverage here on Now TV International. Do stay tuned, 3 p.m. Cairo local time, this afternoon's edition of Panorama News. Till then, my name is Angie Meher, signing off.